Hey everyone, welcome to this week's support-driven meetup. I'm your host, Chase Clemens. Scott has graciously allowed me to host this one. He's still in the chat room, so he's going to be prodding us along with questions and helping out too. But he wanted he was kind enough to let me do this one since the timing just worked out a little bit better. So, like I said, I'm your host, Chase Clemens. I do support over at Basecamp. For those of you that don't know me, you can always set me up on Twitter too. It's twitter.com at Chase Clemens. My guest on this meetup is just one really awesome lady. I mean, there's no other way to phrase that. So, yeah, let's go ahead and introduce you to her. Dayna, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for being on the meetup. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
It will be even more fun because I've lost my voice today.
Yeah, that was one of those we were joking before the hangout that she's got this great radio voice now. That's you don't lose your voice, you gain a radio voice.
This is very true, and I did a nice parallel with Jessica Rabbit for those geeks out there. Or those over 30, one or the other.
So if you haven't been to one of these online meetups before, it's really simple. We're going to do the live Q&A here using the Google Hangout, so you can watch it on YouTube. And then any questions you have, you can throw them into the room. That way we can get those over to Dayna live, and she can answer them on air. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's start. When I first asked you to be on this meetup, we kind of decided to focus around customer onboarding and what does that look like with your team and how you're doing it. One of the big things that your team does are these demos, these training sessions with customers. So can you kind of tell us how effective those are, and do they impact conversion rates in any way?
Sure. Well, I've been with Cision for, I want to say, about 1 year and 3/4. I keep saying 2 years, but it's just shy of. And we've just introduced a new manager role on my team. I'm a team of 9, so I have 8 client service reps that have a variety of experience. And then I'm the director of the department, and then I have an onboarding manager because that role is so important. We have our client service team deals with general client service questions, inquiries, also a little bit of tech support, but not a lot. Their background tends to be PR and customer service. I like to token them as professional kiss butts. I don't usually say butts, but I'm on air. And then the onboarding manager is there to help coach them through the training. The onboarding manager learns things inside and out, and then helps them strategize the training, if you will. So the reps themselves deliver the trainings and the strategy, but they do a bit of powwow with that onboarding manager for the more difficult. I would definitely say that it impacts conversion rates and retention rates more so, especially with a SaaS-based product. We have to be sticky in order to get that renewal, and that's really where it sticks. If somebody doesn't know why your system is used, it doesn't matter if they know how to click a button. It's a matter of why it should be integrated in their day-to-day. So that's I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those where, like with Basecamp, it's kind of the same thing. We're working to keep customers month to month since it's a SaaS app. When you go into these training sessions, let's kind of look at it from strictly new customers here. So people are trying out your product. They want to do a training session and walk through it. Do you charge any extra for that, or is that just something that you sign up for a free trial and they get free of charge, and you're just hoping that they're going to convert and actually become paying customers at the end?
Right. Well, our contracts tend to be 1 year to 2 years in length, and they're quite substantial. So there's certainly a trial, and there is no additional expense to training, or is there to live demos, or even, say, a 30-day trial. Much of our industry thinks that we are a different company than we really are, and that's what's so interesting about it, is that people come to us, the PR industry comes to us looking for us to monitor the media for them. Essentially, if you wanted to know what people thought of you, Chase, you would give us a couple of keywords, and we would look in the media, all sorts of media, traditional and non, to find out the sentiment about you. and that type of thing.
Hmm.
The problem is that's not exactly what we do anymore. We are a press clipping business turned software company. So now it's about showing you that yes, we can do what you expected us to do, but how can we take it to the next level and put the return on investment, that buzzword ROI, into that service? And that's where the software lends itself to the reach numbers and that element. Um, so yeah, it's a little hard to explain. Sometimes I think that we're a little bit multiple personality in that sense, but it really takes the opportunity to ask the client, what are you looking for? What is your day to day? And this is what you came to us for, but this is also what you're going to get from us. And it's usually peace of mind, return on investment, and all that type of thing. But it's all about asking the questions in advance.
Yeah, and that's kind of leads into the next question I had for you. When it comes to that training, you talked about asking questions in advance there. How much prep goes into a training session with one of these companies?
It can really depend. You don't want to get caught with your pants down, so to speak. So I often end up doing a little bit of research about that company in advance. I'm not a news buff. Unfortunately and fortunately, I work for a news company or one that's been known as one. So if I walk into a meeting and don't know anything about this client, I can really sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's less about gearing the questions to the client, and it's more about understanding who the client is and asking the questions so that they start to just unravel their needs. But there's pretty much, I'd say, 3 to 4 questions that you can answer, and many of them are things they just didn't think about. If we're monitoring the media for you, and being Canadian, one of the things I often ask, and people often forget to ask, is, do you want us to monitor in French as well?
Hmm.
As silly as that sounds, and we talked about language just a moment ago, but it's important that even if your name, Chase Clemens, is both English and French, if I partner that with a bunch of other words that are English, I'm going to pull English coverage. And
Mhm.
it's simple as that. People that are coming to us know the industry, and they certainly think they know the industry, but it's my job to know how the system works, to take what they think they want and make it what they really want. My boss likes to use the term the need behind the need. And those 3 or 4, sometimes 5 probing questions can really uncover that. So if you wanted a time, mm, maybe 10 or 15 minutes of Google work. But you really need to know what you're looking for. If you have those buzz questions, they can really help.
Yeah, and when it comes to this, when it comes to the training, is everybody getting that when they sign up for a trial and get started with your software? Is there any kind of selection process, or like if we're talking like with me, if I came to you and said, hey, I want to use this, I want to find out what people are saying about me in French,
Mhm.
would you just say, yeah, we can do that, or would there be some kind of selection process I've got to go through?
Not really. I mean, it can be anyone. As far as the training's concerned, it would usually be the end user. If we're offering simply a demo, it might be some decision makers, but often the people that we're really training are not the decision makers. And at the end of the day, we end up with um, sometimes a disconnect. I'm sure that what you think is going on may not be the same as the decision makers at Basecamp. It may be aligned, but they're certainly not identical. And my job is to make sure that what was sold to them is what we're also delivering to them. And if there's any misalignment or misinterpretation, something lost in translation, that we fix that right off the hop. Because if you're even weeks into a relationship, it can be really hard to reverse that and make it a scalable solution for them.
Yeah. So from the chat, Scott's got a good question
Yeah,
here. I'm kind of stepping back just a second to those buzz questions that you were talking about earlier.
sure.
What are those questions? What questions are you finding that really helps to get people to unravel about what they are looking for?
Sure, that's a great question, Scott, or whoever asked that. I would certainly be a couple of the questions lead off from what the sale is. So, are you the decision maker? What does your day look like? Take me through the motions that you go through. And they're all sort of the same question, but you start to build a rapport. They think you care. Obviously, we do. And then from that, we can then lead into, um, I guess, as far as user adoption, do you plan on using the software, or would you just like to be dealing with the alerts? We have email alerts, much like Google alerts, if you want to think of it, something that people are more familiar with. Do you just want to deal with the alerts, or do you plan on massaging that product that you're ingesting into our software? And from those simple questions, I can find out how much time they have, how much time they plan on devoting to it, and whether or not I should be taking them through the depths of the software, or should I just be focusing on some of the settings, and then maybe throw in some quick nice twos. If I have the nice twos that I can throw, maybe I can pique a little bit of interest and get that user adoption that's so necessary for SaaS. Otherwise, we are just a media monitoring company that, in essence, could be replicated by any other media monitoring company out there. But we're that much more, and I need to get them to that point. So really, what do you want to put into it so that I can give this to you? Otherwise, I'm going to bore you within just ridiculous facts.
Yeah. So as you're asking these questions and kind of unraveling, I think that's the best way to put it. That's, your phrase there. You're probing and finding out more about this customer. Are you finding any kind of like certain levers or certain targets that help indicate whether or not they're actually going to come on board as a customer? Are there any like special, like several bullets that you're looking for that will let you know, hey, this is probably somebody that we can really work with as a customer?
Yeah, most of the time I end up with people that are already decided to be customers. So most of the time, the conversion rate's pretty darn good for me because it's already converted. But with that said, I would say people that are interested, that are engaged in that conversation, and it really is, it truly is a conversation. If I am a talking head and that's all I am to the client, they expect to stay on mute and not answer a question, or I'm waiting 10 seconds for an answer from them because they haven't even considered it, then I know that this will really be a more difficult renewal process for that sales rep down the line. But if I have someone that's really engaged and willing to work with me and able to prioritize their needs within the software, that's a really good indication to me that I've got someone that is willing to build a relationship with me and the company. And it's all about relationships. If we dumb it down to this is software and this is how you point and this is how you click, then there's no point. And you don't need a team of 9 people, and you don't need a director, and you don't need a conversation at all. You need a manual. And that's not that's not my hopes for Cision by any means.
Yeah, at that level, it's videos. Videos can do your job. That's all it is.
Absolutely, and I struggle with that myself. We have, when I joined Cision, we had a number of do-it-yourself videos, and as great as that is, if I wanted to spend my train ride home watching a video, if I've got a problem, I'll be damned if I'm going to watch a video.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's one of those, like, you're giving me this 20-30 minute video to onboard for your app, and I'm like, well, I don't want to sit here for 30 minutes and try to fumble through all this. It just doesn't make sense.
Too true.
Yeah. So was this something, you bring up a good thing here, that your company started with those videos and then moved into the onboarding and more personalized touches and things. Was there a trigger for that kind of move? Did you just walk in and say, hey, look, this just isn't going to work?
In all honesty, yeah. My team didn't have a manager for quite some time, nearly 2 years. And when I joined, I had been a trainer. My role before this was a software trainer for salons and spas. And I was working with PR software, point of sale software, so POS software. And I was not working with a particularly technical bunch. And it was all about making it make sense to them. When I joined Cision, I sat through the same training and insisted on sitting through all the training that our clients go through, and I was bored to tears. Mm-hmm. I remember a few buzzwords because of an inflection in a voice, but beyond that, it was boring beyond belief, and I didn't get it. I really didn't get it, and it wasn't until probably 6 months in that I went, oh, that's what we do?
That's a
I,
long time.
it is a very long time, and that was where I said, no, this isn't going to work. Our clients are not engaged. We cannot just try to um, speak to a crowd and assume that everyone's using this differently. We want this to belong. We want this to integrate into people's lives, and we really need that conversation to happen, so that we can. If we don't know what their lives look like, how can we plan on weaseling our way in?
You you mentioned keeping it fun. Seeing to that training, being bored out of your mind, and looking for ways to make it fun. I think that's something a lot of us have challenges with. Even like with me, my background's in public teaching. Like I've got a degree in how to basically keep kids entertained for an hour and hope that they learn something. But it's a little different when you're doing that with adults. So what things are you doing to keep it lively and keep it fun and keep them engaged while you're doing these trainings?
I honestly don't find it any different than kids. Is that horrible to say?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just, with kids, I can give them Play-Doh and be like, look, let's talk about color.
I need a babysitter, by the way. But but I mean, I have a team of 9 people that are all about, give or take, about 10 years younger than me. And I need to keep them entertained too, and I hope some of them aren't watching today. But it's really about connecting with them. If you're having that conversation, you get into their brain. You can throw a quirky joke, and if they're not laughing, even if it is cheesy, they should feel obligated to laugh. So if they're not, then I need to find another approach. So throwing humor, even if I'm on screen and I'm driving driving the screen itself, I'll throw in a happy face. I'll throw in a picture of crazy hair, or one of those notorious cat videos. And if I must, I insist that they drive. So they have to be engaged. If their computer screen is going to sleep because they haven't touched their mouse in a while, then it best be time for them to take over. I know how to use the software, and I'll tell them that. I know how to use this stuff, but I'm not here for me to learn better. I'm here for you to teach me how to make your life easier. So, and that usually gets them. And if they're not into it, at that point they'll say, hey, you know what? I didn't realize how engaging this needed to be. I'm not ready for this. Let me come back. Or let's book a time when I'm not getting so interrupted. And that's a fair thing for them to say. We're business to business,
Mhm.
and 4-letter words happen in addition to life. So, and I'm okay to say, hey, you know what? You're right. You're not engaged enough. Let's come back to this when you are ready. Let's book a time now.
Yeah. So you talked a little about keeping your team engaged and having fun and all that during the whole thing. When you came in and said, hey, this is something I want to try, I want to start doing these training sessions and really work on the relationships with customers, was your team excited about that? Like, how did they handle moving from kind of the more video-based stuff into the like one-on-one, really work at the customer relationship kind of stuff?
They were terrified, to be honest. We had, when I started, of the 8 people that we had 1 trainer, and he was a senior trainer, had been with the company and using the system for about 7 years, and all its variations and generations of the software. When I said, okay, you know what, this isn't your role anymore, your job is not to be that talking head, what I soon realized is that my team didn't know how to use the software, which is horrible to say.
Wow, that would be a fun thing to find out.
Yeah, they knew how to do the basics, and what I realized was that they were glorified paper pushers. They basically took information from the client and pushed it off to a production team, took that information from the production team and sent it off to the client. So they were falling back into that trap, directed by the client, I might add, of being that old press clipping business where it's, oh, you missed this content, go get it, you can run here and there. And it wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about the software. And many a times the software was blamed when it was actually production that fell short. So it was very eye-opening. And it has probably been a year since we've made that switch, and I finally have people asking me, my staff, asking me the right questions, and me going, I haven't a clue. Let's go find out together. Because before they just nodded and smiled,
Mhm.
And sometimes I call them out on it. You're just nodding and smiling. Don't leave this meeting until you've got, you get it. And if you don't get it, ask. They were so used to being treated like minions, um, that they just didn't absorb anything. And it's really that challenge that I've given them that I think has kept them engaged. Some people, I want to say, are maybe too fell short, and they were intimidated by that need to tear things apart and get the answers. You need to break something sometimes to make it work properly, and that's what we did. We broke it in order to make it start working, and it's finally getting into a groove. And we have the occasional staff turnover, but it is nice to see it finally come into fruition.
Awesome. So let's kind of step over into the tech side a little bit,
All right.
because it's great to talk about, that you should be doing these trainings, and here's some ideas for what you can talk about during trainings, and here's how you can keep them exciting. But, kind of putting the rubber to the road here, what kind of tools are you looking at and using with your customers to pull these trainings off?
Well, when I first started, and sorry, there's an ambulance going by. When I first started, yes, we have crime in Canada. Seriously.
No, I don't believe that. I don't
Yeah,
believe
yeah, it's how we stay warm. That and tea. um, we started with GoToMeeting, and our trainer originally used GoToTraining, which again I found a little bit too talking headish, and I wanted this off the cuff. You have a problem. Do you have the time? Let's chat now. Like, let's not wait till you're simmered down. I want you in your fury because I can fix it now and I can make you just as happy as you are mad. Um, so GoToMeeting was what we started with and is still what we use primarily, especially for those scheduled trainings.
it.
When it comes to assisting someone where it's less training and more assistance, we tend some choose GoToMeeting because they're comfortable. I really like Join.me. I'm cheap as cheap can be, and I fully admit it. In my old company, I found logmein.com a bazillion years ago before it was popular, and then Join.me came from that. So I really like that. If we can't get in through one firewall, we'll go in through another. Um, I have used TeamViewer on occasion, but for the most part, I stick with GoToMeeting and Join.me just because I think that they're tried and true for me. Anyways,
Yeah, I
that's
know
primarily.
we're the same way. The trainings that we do at Basecamp, both our big classes and our one-on-one kind of stuff. GoToMeeting, it's not the most fun piece of software out there.
Mhm.
It's definitely not the prettiest one out there, but it's solid.
Mhm.
I've never had any problems with people like logging into a GoToMeeting chat or pulling things up and all that. So I got to give them that. They're solid, they're reliable, and if you don't use them, Join.me is probably my backup too. That's kind of my go-to one. If like you mentioned with firewalls, a firewall blocks out GoToMeeting, I can usually get in with Join.me.
Exactly, exactly. And it also depends on the user on the other end. If
Hmm.
they're having a problem installing something, you sort of want that, just read me the number, sweetheart. And you just need the basics, because, there's always that ID10T error that could be happening.
So with your team, they're using these tools, they're having fun doing the training and really being engaged and growing and all. With them, how do you do their onboarding, their training? So if tomorrow I showed up and was like, "Hey, Dayna, teach me how to train your customers," what would that look like?
Well, first, I would say crap. Um, we are actually in the middle of a merger, and in fact, this morning it was announced that we were keeping the name Cision. So the crap it comes from all the moving parts that are happening, some that are crumbling, and some that are growing. Um, as always, and we are a big company. We are in 10 different countries. Um, Canada alone has about I want to say about 300 employees, so it's quite a lot. My team, or the client-facing team, is certainly not that large.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that we really try to stay agile, and a lot of it is sink or swim, as horrible as it sounds. We do certainly have documentation, but when you're in the thick of it, do you have an opportunity to read an 80-page manual? Probably not. And has it been updated because now we may have a new platform? Probably not. So we certainly have some go-tos that we use. What we found recent, and this is something just I'm a nerd and I have a lot of time on the Go train, so I have the opportunity to Google, and I was looking for ways of engaging my team because they really were used to a talking head and very accustomed to this sort of smile and nod nonsense. And we've started our go-to meeting, weekly meeting, where we do a roundtable slide presentation. And everyone needs to learn one thing throughout the week. What I've noticed is that when you learn something, if you don't actually need to apply it in any way or teach someone else, retaining it is unlikely. So you get your information and it then just leaves. You fixed your issue and it's gone, and pulling it out of thin air again is unlikely, and it certainly will be warped by the time you get it again. So what we do is on every Monday at 3 o'clock, we have a meeting, and you have to submit by noon that day one slide that we share on Google Slides. And ultimately, I then sort of shuffle them up, and it's forcing them to speak because they have 2 minutes to present what they learned this week. What I found about this is I have a team, a colleague or team member that's been at Cision and its various forms for 15 years. And then I have someone who started last week. So what that actually does is it really forces the sharing of knowledge across all levels and all levels of experience. The person that started a week ago is very, very techy and quickly picked up an application that the one that has been using the system for 15 years is absolutely terrified of. And what it's happening is that they're sharing information that they otherwise wouldn't have shared, either because the person that had been here for 15 years felt, that's just regular day-to-day and I don't need to train anyone that's not new. And then the person that's been here for a couple of days or even a couple of months doesn't feel intimidated about boring the people that have been here forever. So what they learned last week can be so simple. It could also be very difficult. But as a group, we are collectively correcting people's mistakes. What you learn might have been incorrect, and it's also uncovering. So we get to dig deeper into some of the things that might help us on a day-to-day basis, and it's been really great. It forces them to speak. They're not intimidated to share what they've learned, and it's been probably the most successful thing that I've tried to launch to keep them engaged. So this roundtable slideshow presentation that they create themselves, one slide at a time.
That's awesome. That I was telling Scott I might have to steal that idea too, because it's such a great way to let people get to know each other, but at the same time keep their training skills up to par. It's just fantastic all the way around. So kudos on that one.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of round out the whole conversation, when you look at the training that you're doing and compare it to how other companies interact with their customers. Oh wait, I'm going to back up just a second and put a pin in that one because there's another good question that came in from the chat. So when it comes to the round table and the training and all that we were talking about, how is your team getting better at doing the training and the questioning? Is it all happening in that roundtable, or are they doing like courses to become better trainers or anything like that?
They're not doing courses quite yet. It is forcing them to speak with one another, which was really the key. It wasn't to get them better at training. It was actually to get them better at participating and working as a team. That said, they are getting better. Simply at hearing themselves on a microphone, this whole concept is a little bit strange to someone who's only ever dealt with on a phone. They tend to be able to think on their feet an awful lot better than they used to, and even just BS better than they used to. This permission to say, Chase, I don't know how to answer that question, but you know what? I'm going to find out for you, and let me follow up. You know what? I should probably have an answer. Most people have gone home, and I'm being very real. I'll have an answer for you tomorrow morning. And that type of response is appreciated. And I think they were terrified to have those questions. And they hear me do it with clients. I'm not above having conversations with clients. I don't care what my title is. To the extent that if I don't have an answer, or it needs to be escalated above me, my clients can go straight to the president of Cision Canada, and my team hears it. And that has really empowered them as well to say, hey, we're really flat here. We're not siloed, and it's okay to be human. And all of these conversations that we have on the roundtable, and the more experience they have just talking to clients, when it's not a panic, it has been really great, even for their human skills, as silly as that sounds.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When we've been doing our Basecamp online classes now for, I guess, about 2 years, and we do one a week, so I've done, a little over 100 of them so far. And I know Basecamp pretty well, inside and out, but every now and then you'll get a customer that asks something that just catches you off guard. So being able to react in that moment and let them know, hey, look, I don't know at the moment, but I'm going to find out and make sure that you get the answer, and then, follow up, email, phone call, or whatever you need to do. Customers, like you mentioned, customers really appreciate that. It shows, that you're going the extra mile to find out that info for them.
And the way that you bring that up is interesting, because it's how they've started to look at it. You then take that as a learning experience. So the next time a client asks, or the next time it's valuable to use that example, you now have a strategy. And they wouldn't look at them as that, as an opportunity, a building block to knowledge about the industry and the tool. They would look at it as, oh crap, I've got a problem, I've got to fix it. Phew, it's done. Or, oh, thank goodness they've forgotten about the problem. And it's so silly that that someone in client service would think that. You've taken a nice angle where, here's a strategy from your problem. Thank you so much. You've helped me become a better person. Maybe not a better person, but better client service person in the long run. And clients are really appreciative of that, even if it did take you an extra 24 hours to get the answer.
Yeah, it reminds them that they're human, right? I mean, it gets lost a lot of times as you're dealing with online apps and SaaS products. Like, it's easy to forget, hey, there's actual real people on the other side of this training or email conversation or whatever. And being able to say, hey, look, I don't know, I'm going to find out for you, or making a mistake and then correcting that just lets them know, hey, they're human, and that really helps with that relationship that you're establishing with them.
Absolutely.
So to round it out, like we were talking about earlier, when you look at what your company's doing versus what other people are doing for training and customer retention and onboarding and that kind of thing, what's one or two things that really stands out that your company is just really getting right, that your team is really doing right, that we all should be doing?
We're questioning ourselves. I think we don't necessarily have it right, and even if it worked a month ago, it may not work now. Always willing to reinvent, and I appreciate this, coming into this company, realizing that this company's been around since 1890. And it was a totally different kind of business and reinventing itself, and I would say my team has really taken that on. Questioning a process I have to speak American for a moment, questioning that and making sure that you don't just end up going along the rails and following what your other team is doing. If it doesn't feel right, question the darn process, and make sure that it's right for your client right now. It doesn't mean break all the rules, but certainly question them. Maybe that's something I'd like to say to people for life. But overall, I think that's really been where my team has prevailed in this case.
Yeah, we joke about it being good life advice too, but I think that's pretty good life advice right there. Question everything. Don't be afraid to break things or reevaluate and all that. Yeah, solid advice. So let me check one last time, make sure we got all the questions answered from the chat room and that I didn't miss anything. Just scrolling back through real quick. Oh, see, I missed one. Good question here. When it comes to the customers and the relationships that you're establishing with them, is it more uh, is it more just initial kind of training thing, or is it more like training throughout the year? I mean, I imagine after you've used your product for a couple of years, it becomes substantially easier. So I'm guessing you don't train maybe your veteran customers as much as the newer ones.
You'd be surprised. Our veteran customers are actually the hardest ones to train,
Oh
mostly
yeah.
because they still think of us as that press clipping business. And this transition to being a software company has really happened over the last 3 years. In fact, we have basically five big banks in Canada, and we have many of them as clients, and they're like client number four. And they are very difficult to get to adopt the software because it's never been part of their workflow. Um, it is certainly year round. It's also campaign based. So because we're monitoring the media, Chase, you may do one awesome meetup, and all of a sudden things go crazy about you on the news. I'm sure some of you have heard of Rob Ford, my fantastic mayor. Okay, so
The
let's just
extent of him that I know comes from The Daily Show, Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. So probably not the best source.
well,
But
but
yeah, the name
here's
rings
the
a
thing:
bell.
a Toronto mayor got to the States. That's impressive, and made it to like David Letterman and all sorts of stuff. Now let's just put it this way: one of our clients is also Ford Canada, being the car automotive company. Can you imagine the amount of coverage we would get with Ford? And of course, now he has cancer, unfortunately, and so now he's back in the media, and his brother's running for mayor, and so it's on and on. They're just addicted to the news, and we need to teach Ford, the car company, how to handle that and how to filter that out. And we as a company need to learn how to handle that because we have peaks and valleys in the news. So it really does change from issue to issue. Ford may have never had an issue before, and all of a sudden this fantastic mayor came in. So they may never have had to deal with associating their cars with crack cocaine.
Probably not something that they've had to worry about. And I can't think of a better way to end the meetup than on that note. That's hilarious. Anyway, so for people that are looking to get in touch with you, Dayna, what's the best place to find you on the interwebs?
Oh my gosh. I'm probably going to say LinkedIn or Twitter. And I don't know that I actually have them off the top of my head. Twitter's more professional than anything, but I'm happy to keep it going. I believe it's at Dayna_K_Elliot, and I have strange spelling of my name. Can you throw that up there? I don't even know
Yeah,
if you know how.
I was looking for it because I was just looking at your Twitter page the other day. Yeah, so I got it. It'll be in the chat room. This is where you can find her. I don't know about your LinkedIn. I've never seen that one, and I don't really use LinkedIn because they're kind of horrible. But
Oh my gosh. Well, that's how I connect with my clients because they're all business to business. Um,
makes sense. That's a perfect reason to use them then.
Absolutely. You can also catch me on Slack and all sorts of places. Track me down, Dayna with a Y, and you'll usually find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on this meetup. For all of our listeners and viewers and everybody else in the chat, make sure to check out supportdriven.com. That's where Scott's hosting this meetup along with all the other interviews and just really great resources for the support community that he's got there. So definitely check it out, supportdriven.com. That's it. I was your host, Chase Clemens. Hit me up on Twitter if you got questions for me. I'm at Chase Clemens there. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your night.